Your number one hype gal here, and welcome to the weekly warm-up, your weekly dose to feel a little more confident and a lot more human. I'm Jess McDowell, and each week I'll share life updates, mindset shifts, product faves, the little things that help me stay grounded, energized, and moving and grooving. Whether you're heading out for a jog, sipping your morning coffee, or just need a midweek pick-me-up, this is your warm-up for living a real balanced life. So take a breath, shake it out, and let's dive in. Welcome back to the weekly warm-up podcast, and happy April 1st. I understand that y'all will not be listening to this on April 1st, but I am recording this on, guess what, April 1st. And it is important to me that if we're recording on the day of the pink moon, that we discuss it, but that I properly correlate it with main topics of the podcast that we would typically dive into. I promise you it's going to be a good one. So let's dive in. As you're all aware, the pink moon is today, April 1st, which also happens to be April Fool's Day. And the pink moon, though it's not pink, and we'll go into that, it is called the pink moon. And I believe it is a lunar moon because it's a full moon. And I do know that it is in Libra, which is my sign. I am not an astrologist. I am not a palm reader. I'm not a witch. I'm not a wizard. I am not a psychic, but I do love me some manifestation, and I do love the energy of the universe and all that it is. First of all, I hope you all don't hear my dog just raw dogging on one of his femur bones over there, bone marrow bones. It is absolutely atrocious, the sound that he's making, and he doesn't want to go out on the balcony. So it is what it is. The pink moon. Why is it called the pink moon? The name comes from Native American traditions, referring to early spring bloom of wild pink flowers, like cherry blossoms, which I love. It marks the arrival of spring, renewal, fresh start, and new life. But despite the name, the moon doesn't actually turn pink, which is actually a bummer. Themes of this pink moon: relationship clarity, emotional balance, letting go of people pleasing, choosing peace over chaos, regulating with your values. Coming after the intense eclipse energy of March, which we did discuss in an episode, this full moon feels like a moment of integration where things begin to make sense and settle. Pink moon affirmations. I choose peace, harmony, and emotional honesty. I honor my work, set healthy boundaries, and welcome connections that reflect mutual respect and love. I trust that what I release creates space for deeper alignment, and I allow my life to flow with ease, grace, and clarity. I think that that is just beautiful. And then we have a little bit longer of a breakdown. And you know me, I always will share these in the stories when the episode comes out, especially this one, because it is a affirmation that you can write or repeat out loud. Just because it's the pink moon affirmation doesn't mean that you couldn't continue to use this one, because I love it so much. So if you feel like you want to save this, do it. Why not? Who cares? I'm going to write it more than once. Repeat this out loud and write it down. I honor the full moon as a turning point. I gently release all that weighs down on my spirit, old patterns, past attachments, and unspoken burdens. I no longer carry you. I call back my energy from all places it doesn't belong. I create room for peace, clarity, and new beginnings. What is no longer aligned will naturally fall away. What is truly meant for me will feel light, true, and peaceful. I release resentment. I release shame. I release fear. I embrace the version of me that chooses balance, healing, and wholeness. With the glow of this Libra full moon, I step into harmony within myself, my relationships, and my future. I am free. I am restored. I am becoming. And the reason why I'm saying you could use this for other intentions is because, like I said today, how I'm wanting to talk about, the female engineering of our biomechanics and just some foundational topics. I find that as women, we have always been put into categories, especially in sports, with men. And not saying that we don't love the men, because we do. It's not that, but it's more or less on being able to just set aside female, male, and understand that when women in sports and the things that we can go through as far as our bodies, but also mentally and physically, and then what we have to do on a day to day, especially if you have family and children, it is a lot and it weighs a lot on the body. And I find that this affirmation could so correlate into you as an endurance athlete, you as a runner. And that's why I just want it to be something where we can talk about these affirmations and it not just be about a full moon, but it be about just our lifestyles in general and how we can continue to show up for ourselves and show up for our community and not feel like we are less than. So as female runners, and now it being April 1st, well, quote unquote, because it's not anymore. But usually that means that the winter base ends. So winter season's ending. Now we're getting into the spring season, which is one of my favorite seasons. But also that is when performance season begins. Peak performance season is happening. And that means that there is going to be a lot of struggle, a lot of challenge, a lot of new. We're not comparing, apples to apples, oranges to oranges. It's just facts. So we've been told to follow the same training blocks, and we are asked to wear similar shoes or even size appropriate, so that way we could wear the men's version of the shoe, or, and then when I say shoe, as in a running shoe, or ignore the unique, sometimes beautiful but frustrating biomechanics that make us who we are. And I will say to you one thing: I have in the past opted to wear male shoes because the woman's shoe, when women's shoes aren't being made properly and you feel like you have to wear the male version of it, it's unfortunate because the male version of that shoe is not designed for the female foot. So things like that, that just really sometimes get in the way of you being able to be a peak performer. And again, that's why we're going back to the whole aspect of pink moon, pink being women, feminine, girl, but also the affirmation of you being able to let go of all these other stigmas and us being able to really kind of finally dive in to feeling like we're dominating this sport of running and endurance, because truly we are. And it's so badass to see. So, the first part of the segment, I want to talk about the pelvic floor. And the pelvic floor has a huge, huge, huge foundation for the stride. And our stride is what obviously gets us from point A to point B when we're running, but it is also how we are spending time on the ground and off the ground, how our heel is landing, how we're landing on our toes, how we are propelling forward. That's going to help with our distance, our stamina, our speed, our energy. So, all in all, our stride is very, very important, clearly. But you want to have a healthy pelvic floor to be able to have a controlled stride. This is a statistic I find so interesting, and is 1 in 3 female athletes experience some form of stress inconsistency when it comes to their stride. But the catch was that common does not mean normal. And so to have 1 in 3 female athletes, which is quite a bit, experience some form of that stress inconsistent in the pelvic floor area means that, are they, as women, are we being taught properly with stride? Are we being taught properly with our stride with our pelvic floor and our biology or physiology? Or is this something where we're just reading books teaching us how we should be obviously striding and what our cadence should be? There's going to be a couple things here. So we're going to talk about our core, we're going to talk about our diaphragm, and then we're going to talk about how, when we're running, how we can properly breathe to help alleviate putting so much pressure onto our pelvic floor. So to start off with, our core, as much as we love to talk about having a sexy six pack, and there's nothing wrong with that. We want a strong core, especially because it is our base. That is our pressure canister area. So the top of it obviously being our diaphragm, where we're breathing, right? Catch me here. Great. So the bottom is your pelvic floor. And I'm sure we all know about that as well. And then if you think about that as far as using the restroom, as far as hip tilts go, as far as your hip mobility, and then where your pelvic floor area is, aka also having babies. So essentially, when we're running, we are jumping from one foot to another. If you want to just think about it like that, that's totally fine. So when we're hitting the ground, we're hitting that at 3 to 4 times our body weight. It's the same thing as when we're doing body weight exercises, but this is more of a high intensity sport instead. 3 to 4 times our body weight, that is insane. And then just to be crushing on our pelvic floor. So then obviously that's going to spike massive internal pressure, right? So typically you're told to not suck it in, but to engage your core, right? And to look lean. And that we are told to not hold our breath when we get tired, but that we want to keep the core really activated and that you're able to. And then from there, if your core is activated, then you're staying really centered and square in the hips. And then from there, that's obviously helping with your pressure with hitting the, excuse me, with striking the ground with your shoes, right? Which then when you're striking the ground comes up to the knees and then goes up to the hips, obviously into the pelvic floor and so forth. But if you're thinking about it, if we're running miles and miles and you're just constantly, hammering, think of a nail and a hammer, you're hitting that and it's going to weaken, right? Or if you're not doing like a nail and a hammer, think of something. Clearly, you can tell I'm not a guy. Think of like like wood and a hammer. I don't know, but it's going to wear and tear after time, right? Same thing. Now, here is what we're going to do to make it fun, and you're going to have a drill for the next time you run. I want you to think about every time you have impact, you're going to exhale out, but it's going to be a sharp exhale. And you're going to almost want to make a sound when you do that sharp exhale of puff. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to trigger your pelvic floor to lift and contrast naturally. And it's almost as if it's a built-in shock absorber. So again, when you're running, every time you strike the ground, so you're making impact, you want to exhale, but you want to do it where you are doing a sharp exhale. Now, let's also not fully lose our breath by completely exhaling out and then breathing in too quickly and you starting to get your heart rate up. But basically, a nice sound, sharp puff of air, and then we'll trigger your pelvic floor to lift and contract naturally. And it's basically a built in shock absorber. Whoa, shock absorber. It's really amazing. Not only that, this technique will also help you with balancing your breath because technically with running especially it is a high endurance sport and you should every once in a while, and I'm going to say within strides, want to breathe out really deep. You want to exhale and get all that out. That way you're able to take this big breath in of lungs and kind of restart and slow down your heart rate. That's at least what I love to do when I feel like my heart rate's getting a little too high, or if I'm running at a pace where I am starting to feel like I'm a little bit out of breath or I'm just needing to gain control again. A big exhale out is the right way to go to just kind of center you back, notice your presence, if you want to say that, and then also to reset that heart rate and your breath. And then this was something that I really liked about reading about was that this does help, especially those that leak when they run. There's no problem with leakage when running, regardless if you've had children or not. It is normal, especially if you have a leaky bladder or if you've had children or any type of pelvic floor issues. And so by being able to have breath in line and have a rhythm with your running strides will really help prevent. Okay. Now, this takes time. It's not going to be a one fix, one hit wonder, but it will help prevent those little leaky moments and obviously alleviate some of that 3 to 4 times pressure on your pelvic floor area. So get out there. Now you have a drill to do. Lately, I've seen a lot of videos or articles. I guess I've just seen a lot lately on supplementation and people either for it or against it. And I'm not going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do supplementation wise, but yes, if we want to state the obvious and go the full holistic route, yes, if you ate your fruits and your vegetables and your meats and proteins and fat in the foods that you're cooking, technically you wouldn't need supplementation for maybe, let's say, a multivitamin. Let's potentially say a greens powder. Cool, right? Maybe an iron pill, depending on iron deficiency. Again, I get it that we don't need to be overwhelming people with supplements 24/7. Coming from a girl, I love supplements. I love taking supplements. I love taking supplements for certain reasons. I also like supplementing for supplementing when it comes to if I'm not having all my fruits and veggies all the time. So I am for it. Where I can get bothered is when people in the industry with background, but not all the knowledge in the background, are telling people that they shouldn't be taking supplements and that they are a scam. Just like anything in this world, everything's a scam, right? But also there are reasons for supplementing. For instance, myself, I supplement for skin, nails, hair, yes, but I also supplement for performance. I supplement for recovery. I supplement for muscle growth, or at least to maintain muscle growth and muscle recovery. I'm not supplementing so that way I don't have to get in my pyramid of foods or that I don't have to eat vegetables. Having a greens powder isn't counterintuitive if you're not getting enough of those nutrients in on your own. Most people aren't, which is why having some sort of greens powder that also adds in superfoods, has some mushroom benefits to it, and basically can take away from you having to purchase 4 or 5 different, supplements is huge. I've been taking a greens powder that I love, that I swear by, that I notice my energy is different, my metabolism, my overall health. I notice it. And to me, if it is working, I am going to do it. Okay. I understand if you're going to do some sort of probiotic or gut cleanse, that there must be a reason behind that, whether it's you wanting to re regulate your gut because you've had bad gut health, or you have breakouts, or there's something going on internally with your GI and your digestive system. It's not a bad thing to do. Also, again, having a supplement to help be a little bit more preventative is not a bad thing. My point of the story is no, you don't need to have a pharmacy of supplements, and you don't need to take 1,300 different supplements a day to get to where you need to be or to be the beacon of health. But if there are a few supplements to help you maintain the goals that you are needing to do and that benefit your body and for what you're doing, like I say for myself, performance and recovery, then there is nothing wrong with that. Just make sure that you obviously have researched the brand and you're feeling confident about it, or that you can even seek advice, like asking myself or something like that. But I'm kind of getting sick of this trend of people telling people what they should and shouldn't do by not scaring them, but by just like going above and beyond what really it needs to be. No shit, we can eat our vitamins and minerals in everyday foods. We get that, and the whole diet culture and things like that. But like diet culture and supplements is completely different. Diet culture is you restricting yourself from eating certain foods for a fear of something, or choosing to eat a certain genre of food or type of food and not say meat. You're not wanting to eat meat because of personal reasons, religion, whatever it may be, or because you want to be on a carnivore diet and lean out. That is a diet culture. Supplements is, I can see where you'd want to think it's a diet culture, unless you are in more of like the weight loss supplements and things like that. But that's on a different category that I'm talking about. Diet culture is not supplements. Diet culture is you restricting yourself from eating something or taking something so that you feel like you can become a certain weight or look a certain way. And those are two different things. So that's kind of where I'm at, is let's stop compete or not competing, but let's stop putting in supplementation with diet culture. I wanted to piggyback a little bit on one of the topics we talked about the other week when we were talking about gear, as far as running vests, running belts, things like that. I've mentioned running shoes too before. So we're not really piggybacking, because actually last episode we didn't really talk about this. So you're right, we're not really piggybacking. But anyways, we're talking about the gear gap and basically shoes and tech. And the thing about it is that women's shoes, it's basically the pink version of the male shoe. It has been that way. I'm not saying it's not getting away from that, but historically, what has happened is there has been a shoe designed And then that shoe is then split up in between male and female. And then they just throw on some basic girl colors that they think we like, which we end up don't liking. And we end up buying the male version of it because we can't stand the girl version of it because of that reason. And I've done it several times because of the fact that I felt like the women's shoe was not made for the average woman. This is the most interesting thing. So in the footwear industry, in the sneaker industry, they're using something called a last, just like the word LAST, last. And it is basically a 3D mold of a foot. And then the shoe is basically built around the last. Now, I want to say that this is common for most brands, but if you are aware of brands that you would know someone that knows somebody, please speak up and say that that's old school or that this isn't happening anymore. But this is like from a lot of research and things that I've just read in books and stuff like that, because I'm a sneakerhead, especially when it comes to running and running sneakers and making sure you have the right shoes. So basically, that's where there were no females for shoes. It was just the last 3D mold. Yes, again, they took a man's foot, made it 20% smaller, and called it a woman's shoe. Practical. Yep. Very, very, very cost effective and efficient, because that's what it's all about. They don't need anything else. So let's just make it 20% smaller and call it a day. Yikes. But if you look at our lovely athletic feet, my feet are narrow. I have a narrow foot. Some people don't. Some people have a little wider foot. That my mom and I have, like, I'm narrow, she's a little bit more wide. That's totally fine. But not only that, we would naturally have more of a narrow foot than men would, obviously. And then also too, our arches. Our arches are a lot different than what a male's arch would be. We tend to have obviously more of an arch where they are more at like a flat foot. So because women technically have more of an arch most of the time than a male with a flat foot, that's also how we have different pressure points because of our hips and how we distribute our weight. Because again, we bear children, so our bodies are different than male, if you didn't know. So what's happened is if we were a shoe built on a male, your heel will slip or your toes will claw or your sole will stay stable. And all of this leads to plantar fasciitis, but also not being able to have proper stride, which then puts more stress onto our knees and our hips and our pelvic floor. Not being able to feel comfortable and confident in a shoe, but feeling like this is the only option. Not having the appropriate support in the shoe. Maybe it's giving you blisters. Maybe it's slowing your stride down. Maybe you're feeling a little heavier on the feet. And it just becomes a nightmare. And the thing about it is there's nothing really you can do about it unless the shoe brands decide to change that around and maybe have a last for a 3D mold of a woman's foot and a male's foot. So this is where I don't know if you will say this or not, and that the people in the shoe department, I want to say if you go into a running shoe store, that they should be able to answer this. But if you go into just a regular shoe department or some sort of shoe store, I don't know if they'll answer this for you. But this is kind of like the consumer challenge. And that is, next time you go into a store to get running sneakers, you're going to ask, is this shoe built on a female specific last? And then if they look at you like, what are you talking about? You're going to say a last, which is a 3D mold of a foot that the shoe is built around, right? And crazy enough, brands like Brooks, Saucony, which is my favorite shoe brand for running sneakers by far, they are using 3D scans of female feet to build their foam in their feet, which is why when I run with their shoes, I feel unstoppable and they feel like they fit me. They feel like they fit my foot and they are for me, and I am obsessed with them. And that's what is so important. I have worn Nike shoes that are men's shoes because the women's shoes were crap and then the colors were crap. And though I felt like I was performing, I wasn't. I was starting to get heavier on the feet. I didn't like how I was striding. I didn't feel like I always had a full fit. I was feeling like sometimes with the arch that I was landing a different way. And when you run on shoes for a period of time, you start to biologically morph into that. So it's almost like you're having to retrain your body to wear shoes that are actually built for your physiology, which is amazing. So, anyways, another little food for thought next time you are looking for running sneakers, see if you can ask if this shoe is built for a female specific last. And then your other challenge is to what? Breathe out like a shh sound when you're running to help with what? Our pelvic floor. So reducing pressure on that impact. Look at us go. So wrapping this up all around in a nice little bow, I want you to think of April, it being a new month. We had this new beautiful pink moon. We have these beautiful affirmations towards ourselves and how you can implement these affirmations into your training, into your endurance training, into your running training as performance season starts to pick up, as we start to feel the pressure of competitiveness with ourselves, with others, with feeling like we have to keep up, with feeling like we aren't doing the best. We should be at a better pace. We should be at a farther distance. I shouldn't feel this tired, XYZ. Go back to those affirmations and remember how the month started and let your body just literally go through the flow. I have finally accepted at age 36 that when I am in my luteal phase, there is nothing I can do to make me perform any better or any less if I'm constantly fighting against my biology or my physiology. I am now fully committed to working and to training with my body. And when you start doing that, it feels so much better. You have grace for yourself. You're proud of what you get done. You actually have better workouts, better training sessions because you're not instinctively in your head putting this unnecessary pressure on yourself and your body that you have to do this and you have to do that. And if it means you have to switch up your workouts, if it means you have to switch up your training and maybe not do as much intensity, but more miles or less miles and a little bit more intensity, whatever it may be, in the long run, it's going to work out better for you because you're not going to burn out. And when you burn out, that takes longer to come back. So if you're burning out, it takes longer to come back. But then if you burn out, you're at more risk for what? Injury. So instead of doing that, just work with your body. And then once you're back into your follicular phase and you've gotten done with, ovulating and you're on cloud 9 and you're crushing it and that's where you put all that energy into, then you're going to be proud of yourself for putting in the work when you were in your, I just said follicular. No, I said luteal. See, oh my gosh. Yep. I'm in between the luteal and the ovulation right now, guys. If that means, so I should be getting my PMS or my period, whatever, we're women. So yes, luteal phase, but when you're in your follicular phase and the ovulation phase, which both are very, very strong weeks for you to power through on that training that will supplement and help you when you're on those lower moments of training. So just work with your body. That's all I have to say. I know we already did a reading section for the pod that like I normally do, but since it was about the moon, I feel like that doesn't count. So I want to do a different one. And I started reading this one about athletes who visualize often perform better than those who don't. I feel like that's a given, but maybe not for all. So I guess we could talk about that. All right. So the breakdown is visualization isn't just mindset, it's real neurological training. So here's the breakdown. So brain equals practice mode, motor regions active, pathways strengthen, your brain rehearses movement. Repetition builds circuits. Physical or mental reps both count. Vivid reps equals stronger wiring. Your body responds to heart rate changes, muscles active, how to do it right. See it, hear it, feel it, make it as real as possible. Best method, first person only, not watching yourself. Okay. So your brain treats it as a practice. When you imagine movement vividly, motor regions activate, neural pathways strengthen, your brain rehearses the action, and no movement is required. I'm going to try this. Repetition builds circuits. Your brain learns through repetition. That can be physical or mental. The more vivid the repetition, the stronger the circuit. Your body responds to visualization is not passive. It can trigger heart rate changes, muscle activation, hormonal shifts. Your body prepares like it's real. I see it, no pun intended. The best way to visualize, make it multisensory. See it, hear it, feel it. The more real it feels, the stronger the effect. First person works best. Don't watch yourself, see through your own eyes. First person visualization actives stronger motor planning. What do you mean? First person works best. Don't watch yourself. Oh, okay. Don't like watch yourself in the mirror, I'm assuming, just to sit and do it. Like see through your own eyes. The practical rule, your brain prepares for what you repeat. Use it 5 minutes daily, visualize success, combine with real training. Mental plus physical equals peak performance. This is exactly like manifestation, and I'm here for it. So we will definitely be sharing this. I'm going to make sure I send it to the pod as well as this to the pod. So that way, when the episode comes out, y'all will have everything you need to be the best versions of yourself, because that is why I'm here. Though I always wonder, like, some episodes are great, some episodes are meh, and that just ebbs and flows with life. And also, you have to realize podcasting isn't for the weak. I mean, we have to entertain people and entertain, obviously, my podcast, there's genres, right? So people that are listening to my podcast obviously are going to have similar interests of what I'm talking about. But in general, we have to entertain. And then I always wonder too, am I not being funny enough? Should I be talking about things that are more funny or life related? But then also, I'm not saying I'm boring, but I'm just building my Miami empire. We could talk about it, but I also don't like to just talk about myself. I rather talk about really cool topics that can educate and get people to become the best that they can be. But at the same time, I'll listen to some dating podcasts, or I'll listen to some, funny, just one-off comedy podcasts. And then I get jealous because I know I'm funny and I want to be able to do that too. But it's just like, it's not my brand. My brand isn't comedy. My brand is running and endurance. But at the same time, I have personality. I don't know. I just always think about that. But then I have literally heard so many successful people that have had a podcast that, are getting way, 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 way more watches and everything follows than I have. And they say it all the time too. They're like, there are some episodes where I literally tell myself, okay, I'm done. Like it's over with. I don't have a career in this anymore. I am moving on. And then you'll have that next episode that just crushes it and you're back up again. So we're going to take this one as a C, as a C minus. I mean, you learned something, we had a good time, but it wasn't my best work. And I'll admit that. If I'm out here being vulnerable in myself and saying this wasn't my best work, take it. All right. Take it. Take me for what I am. And that's that.